with Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I am Diane Kinderwater. As a public service to you, the viewers, KCHF TV and Issues and Answers is doing a number of political profiles because we know that Election Day is soon, Tuesday, November 6th. We have invited the U.S. Senate candidates. We've invited all three congressional race candidates. Plus, we know that the race this coming November is also for president. Now, we haven't invited the presidential candidates nor the state house or state senate candidates. So a lot of important people on the ballot, a lot of choices for you. And today on this program, I'm very pleased to have Congressional District 1 candidate, former state representative Janice Arnold-Jones as a guest on the program. So we have a whole half hour dedicated for you, the viewers, to learn more about former Representative Janice Arnold-Jones. We'll be back right after this.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Are you ready for a more rewarding financial experience? Get local decisions on loans and accounts from people that live and work in your communities. Join State Employees Credit Union today and start getting rewarded. Thank you. Also get up to $250 cash when you refinance your auto loan. Stop by one of our offices, give us a call, or go online and find out just how easy it is to make the switch to a locally owned and operated financial institution.
Man, I love my credit union. Me too.
Profile for you, the viewers, and we are looking at congressional candidates. First Congressional District, Janice Arnold-Jones. Welcome to the program.
So nice to see you.
You're certainly no stranger, former representative, gubernatorial candidate.
Yes.
You've been great to our viewers here, Janice. Thank you so much.
It's a privilege.
Now you're running for Congressional District 1 seat. You have an opponent. We're going to talk about your background, the fact that you're a graduate from Albuquerque High School, University of New Mexico. You're a businesswoman, 35 years dedicated to public service, volunteer. But first of all, before we get into all that, what is one thing you want our viewers to carry away about what they may not know about you, or what is so important about you and this race?
Probably the most important thing is I am prepared to represent you. You know, jobs are clearly at the top of everybody's list right now. New Mexico, unfortunately, fell yesterday to the state with the greatest amount of poverty, and yet I look at our natural resources, and what I want people to know about me is that I understand business, I understand where the government is getting in the way, and we have the resources not only to lift up our own economy, but to help our own country. And I am excited about that discussion.
And you're saying that you're ready for it. Not only have you been in public service,
yes,
state representative representing, I think, what district?
District 24.
Where is that in Albuquerque?
It was, if you know the high schools in Albuquerque, it went from Sandia High School to El Dorado High School, which is sort of north and east of Coronado Shopping Center.
A number of years is that, but also you ran for governor. Tell me about that.
Preparation for running for Congress, and it was an honor to run for governor, to be able to get around the state and see whether or not the policies and the legislation we worked on in Santa Fe helped or hurt, and I saw both. That was such invaluable preparation for representing this state in Washington. And we have such a small delegation, so while I might represent Congressional District 1, the truth is I will be representing the entire state.
And you've traveled around the entire state, I imagine,
did.
when you were a gubernatorial candidate.
I did. Loved it.
Congressional District 1, tell me, Janice, where is that located?
Congressional District 1 is 5 counties, so it's all of Bernalillo, all of Torrance, 3 precincts of Santa Fe County over by Edgewood, 4 precincts of Valencia County on the northeast corner of Valencia County, and 11 precincts in Sandoval that goes all the way up to Buttigers, but the section where there's mostly cows.
Okay. We're important to our state as well.
Absolutely.
Concerning your opponent and yourself, it's an open seat. So it's quite unique, actually, when you get down to congressional seats, because once somebody's in Congress, they tend to stay there. So it's an open seat. You have a Democratic opponent. You're a Republican candidate. But you feel that you are prepared because of your vast background.
Absolutely. My opponent is a career bureaucrat. And while I commend people who go in that type of service, our country needs people who understand what it's like to legislate and what happens to real businesses when we are legislating.
What happens to them? You've worked as a contractor for the Department of Energy. You've also had two businesses. You've worked around the country. But what is your experience with the regulations on businesses right here in the state of New Mexico?
Well, probably the funniest one is when we have regulations that are in conflict, and there are. Here's an example. Some fugitive dust rules where businesses actually comply, but the moment they fully comply with the fugitive dust rules, they are in violation of the fugitive water rules. That is craziness. And to know
conflicting rules, so what is a business supposed to do?
They don't know
violate one, violate both, don't pay attention, what?
And it adds to more uncertainty, so businesses stay on the sidelines rather than moving our economy forward. We have to stop that. If we have any hope of creating jobs, of reducing our debt, we have to get our economy moving again. And it's things like this. This isn't sexy stuff. This is the hidden stuff. But this is what a really good legislator can see. And I can see this.
Because of your experience.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit about your business experience.
Well, I had one business. The first one didn't go so well. Very painful lessons. Second business was an audio and video production company that lasted for 20 years in San Diego. And as you know, I'm a Navy wife. So my career has always been punctuated by being a wife and moving around the world. But I maintained this company. And when we got back to Albuquerque, I decided to run a soccer organization rather than open another business, but I eventually became a Department of Energy contractor, which I have done for 12 years. And so I have a very good understanding of how our labs and our bases actually interact with our economy in this state, and we are a federally dependent state.
So what does that mean to serving in Congress, the experience, your business experience with the labs?
Well, two things. One, I understand the national security part. Make no mistake. Our bases and our labs have a very specific mission. It is the nuclear deterrence mission. It is the mission that tells people in the world, stay off of our country, don't try anything. And I paraphrase, but literally that's what we're doing.
I understand that. Thank you for paraphrasing. I understand that lingo. I understand.
And so that is part of the mission of Sandia National Labs. Because I was a contractor, I understand that. It is a much broader mission. But in Congress, someone must stand up and remind Congress about the very specific mission, and this mission is only accomplished in New Mexico. We are the only ones. So if our delegation fails to stand up, Congress could overlook it and not fund it. Now, would that be a disaster to our economy? Absolutely. But it would be a disaster to our national security. That's
oftentimes we think we recall former U.S. Senator Pete Domenici, who championed for over 36 years, the labs and this, and we lost that voice in Washington. What has changed, do you think? Because we've lost a lot of seniority.
Well, one of the issue of sequestration, which is coming up. If nothing happens the 1st of January, there will be extensive cuts across the board, but significant ones to the Department of Defense as well as to our laboratories. I believe that sequestration number was as high as it is because our voices were not represented, because we didn't have the expertise in Washington.
You mentioned that you're a Navy wife. I didn't introduce that, but your husband's colonel, retired commander.
Thank you,
commander.
Retired commander.
Your father was a Air Force pilot?
Right, he was killed testing a B-57 bomber in 1963. Funny story, that's how I got to New Mexico. Literally, my mom turned her back to a map and threw a dart. And she said, I will go wherever that dart is, the nearest town that has a university and a military base. Very gutsy lady.
Very much so.
Yes.
Also, in addition to running for governor and being a representative, you've also, as you mentioned, the soccer, you're involved with soccer, Boy Scouts, graduate of Albuquerque High.
I'm very proud of that. 1970, the old Albuquerque High School at Broadway and Central. And if there are any Bulldogs out there, it is time to send a Bulldog to Congress.
And UNM graduate as well.
Yes, yes.
So a lot of roots here in the state of New Mexico. But plus you traveled around the country.
And the world. One of the real blessings of being a Navy wife is I got to see Gulf. So what this means to the viewers is I would show up in a port and hope that my husband would also show up, which only happened about 50% of the time. So you're there, you have to travel. And so I have been to beautiful places, Thailand, China, Japan, wonderful places that are absolutely beautiful, but none as beautiful or as spiritual as the state of New Mexico.
It's true. Concerning our military, what is your feeling about who are supposed to be getting out of Afghanistan? What is the situation there? What do you think it should be?
Well, I think things are certainly volatile right now, so I want to present another view of what we have accomplished in Afghanistan. When we first went in, the Taliban and Hezbollah were literally just choking the Afghanis. They wanted to have a life without fear. To almost 100%, the Taliban and Hezbollah are no longer in Afghanistan. What we have accomplished, and know that we've not accomplished this by ourselves. There are roads. Women are running businesses. Girls get to go to school. Agriculture is being produced. Here is a budding nation that wants to have its own right to self-determination. So I caution us, and one of the things, I'm going to listen to the people who are on the ground. But before we just simply pull out, we need to make sure that what we're walking away from is strong enough to stand by itself.
But a lot of our troops are now being killed by the Afghan.
Yes.
Not the rebels even. I mean, they're being killed by rebels, but also the people in the military who are training. They're turning on our own American men and women.
Well, I'm saying it does appear to me to be Islamic extremists. You don't want to say exactly who they are. Are they the Taliban? Are they Hezbollah? I can't even answer that. I don't know.
And, of course, we've had a diplomat.
Dreadful. And so my question nationally is, I have been getting emails from this region for weeks saying that the defense of our embassies is too small. Where is it? And, the host country provides that defense. And I'm wondering, where is the leadership in our country saying there is no defensive systems here? Do we need to bring our people home? And I think we acted way too late.
And so again, regarding the war in Afghanistan, and a pull-out date, you feel talk to the men and women on the field. And
I think we want to accomplish making sure that the Taliban and Hezbollah do not return, if we can do that. But remember, it is not just the United States that is working on this.
In national news recently has been presidential candidate Mitt Romney speaking out about 47% of the population is poor on government service. He didn't say handouts, but government handouts,
subsidies, yes, dependency.
And then recently, the state of New Mexico has been rated the poorest state in the nation.
Right.
What is your feeling about our huge deficit and the fact that a lot of New Mexicans and Americans are now relying on subsidies?
Well, clearly, what I think is we have got to jumpstart our economy. Depending on the government is not the way to go. What you will see is a cycle that simply spirals downwards. There will be less and less. Rather than abundance, there will be less no matter what you do. So, looking at the number of people, and I know you brought up Governor Romney, what he said was, I wished he hadn't said it that way. But the truth is that we have 47% of the people who do not overtly pay taxes. And I want to bring up just one small piece of people in New Mexico that I know, seniors, who do not file for their income taxes because, one, they're not required to, but because they don't, many of those subsidies that we talk about, they don't take because they consider it charity. It's a very interesting perspective.
That older generation.
That's right. And we don't talk about that.
Where Social Security is something they've paid into all their lives, and it's not considered a subsidy.
Right, because it's theirs. They earned it. They paid for it.
That they paid for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What is your position on Social Security and the future of Social Security?
Well, a couple of things. One, I believe in keeping our promises. So we have people who are well over 55 who've planned their lives around this particular benefit. And saying it's an entitlement, that's not right. It's theirs. It is theirs. So to tell them they could not have it is wrong. We have to keep that promise. But if you're under 55, in order for that promise to be real, we will have to make significant changes, not the least of which is at what age you are eligible. There are other things that we should be doing. The trust fund, we've taken interest off of the Social Security Trust Fund for years, actually, to pay for the Vietnam War. It's time to start returning that interest to the trust fund. So if we're going to make this promise, that we are able to keep it. And keeping your promise, keeping your word is something that I live by.
And an election year, that's kind of tough to say in terms of, I mean, it's being frank on the system can't afford itself as it is now.
Yeah.
So you're saying changes for the population under 55 have to be considered?
Absolutely. Otherwise, the promise that is issued is absolutely meaningless.
Concerning Social Security, let's move on to, of course, regarding the economy, the handouts or doles to Wall Street. Tell me your feelings on that. All these subsidies that were given to big corporations. Would you, I believe now we're looking even in the mortgage industry, maybe continuing things such as that.
And so did it go directly to Wall Street? So we have to be careful where we talk about where did the subsidies go. So when we talk about the stimulus program, things, the money that was handed, for example, to the Department of Energy, I'm here to tell you that the Department of Energy is poorly prepared to assess a business plan of a startup business in solar or any other business to predict whether or not it will be successful. The money was so much, so fast, that the business did not become strong because if you're in a small business, what you learn is to survive. And those large companies did not get those survival skills. We actually handicapped the business. So
learning those tough things that you need to survive.
You actually need to do that. So Solyndra was a terrible plan, and so we've lost $500 million with Solyndra, and it goes on with the solar companies. And here's another little detail, and they didn't look at the supply chain. So here's a benefit for the state of New Mexico. China cut us off from something called rare earth minerals about 4 months ago. It's an essential component of producing solar panels. Also your cell phone, your grill lighter, all kinds of things. New Mexico has 13% of the world's deposits. We have that. We can actually change the manufacturing picture of our nation. And part of that starts with supply chain. So if you look at one of the reasons why Solyndra failed, it actually started without having enough of adequate supplies at the right price. New Mexico can help fix that.
Regarding energy, since you moved into solar energy, we've seen here in the state of New Mexico, mainly because of a lot of state regulations, perhaps some national regulations as well, moving out. They're leaving our country. They have left our state. It's going to be tough to get them back. Tell me your position concerning energy for our country, the sustainability, and here in New Mexico.
Well, I am unabashed at believing and saying that the United States of America should be energy independent. We have the resources. We should not be buying 40% of our oil from another country. And if you really want to look at foreign relations, when we stop using other people's resources and start developing our own, I think our position in the rest of the world will actually change. Now, with regard to our energy companies here in the state of New Mexico, not necessarily a federal issue, but the tax structure in our state is unfriendly. The corporate tax rate alone is the highest in the area, and it is unfriendly. Our tax system could be, and now I'm going to speak both state and federally, it needs to be simplified. Taxes should be low and broad. It should be fair, easy to understand, easy to administer, and there's some metrics to measure this. I mean, let me just throw one out for you. What if we set up our tax system so that any individual filing their taxes would never spend more than 8 hours to file their taxes? What do you think? Oh, would you like that?
8 hours.
We can do that. There are tools. We have to choose to do this. I believe we can.
And that's not just for the energy industry, but for everybody.
For everybody.
And that's what, actually, in the big presidential race, they are discussing the taxation.
Yes.
Are corporations getting more tax benefits? Some people, as we were discussing with this Mitt Romney comment, aren't even. I mean, I think it brought to the public light that 50% are not paying taxes at all. When we speak of income tax, of course, sales tax you have to pay and things like that.
Sure.
But we're speaking about income tax. Half of the country does not pay.
Well, overtly, they don't pay income tax. It isn't that they're not paying taxes. And, I sat on the tax committee for 8 years, so I'm very sensitive to this. But the fact is that overt payment doesn't exist. And so should everyone in the United States who is of age overtly pay, say, $1 in income tax just to guarantee that voice? I actually think that's a good idea.
Concerning our deficit.
Terrible.
Terrible. It's affecting everybody. They may not realize it today, but soon our children, grandchildren, but even us. It's not going to just be our children. It's going to be us.
The deficit, and let me just make sure the terms are correct here. So the deficit is what happens every year with your budget. So our budget this year is about $3.6 trillion. We are only taking in $2.2 trillion. So that means that we are writing blank checks It's, and I hate to tell you, you're a blonde, I'm a blonde too. How they say we write checks because there's checks in the checkbook. That's what our government is doing, and there's no money there. Now, in the state of New Mexico, we require a balanced budget. There are 33 states that require a balanced budget.
33 states.
Why not Congress?
In your experience,
I know how to do this.
As experience in the taxation committee, as a legislator, we do balance our budgets here, but nationally is what affects us greatly when you're writing these blank checks and there's not enough money because the dollars that we have in our pocket, they're devaluing.
Well, they are, and foreign countries are holding our debt, and the CDs that your parents have that they plan to live on are making less than 1% in interest. A lot of things are happening, but I want to get back to the deficit. So off of the budget each year comes the deficit. The next year, that deficit is added to the debt. We're well over $16 trillion in debt. I can't even, I have a hard time getting my head.
That number, where does that number come from?
What
I know it comes after
mean?
Billions.
Right, it's like gazillions.
Yeah.
And right now, if our children were to step up and somebody offered them a bill today for the baby that is born, it's about $200,000 today, right this minute.
Per person.
Yes.
For the babies. $200,000
for every
obligated to do.
every individual in the nation. $200,000.
And our debts, a lot of it's being carried by China. What are your concerns with that?
Well, to me, the greatest threat to our national security is not the weapons, it's the debt. The reason we have influence in the world is because we were able to loan money. That is the reality, and we are really strapped for cash.
What needs to be done, Janice?
We need to start having that hard discussion, just like you have at home. If the credit cards are out of control, you have to make some choices and start pulling it back. And know that we did not get into this overnight. We will not get out of it overnight. But we simply must commit to balancing the budget and starting to pull down the debt every single year. And the American people should be able to see that.
What areas do you believe, if you were to serve us in Congress, need to be worked on? Cut back where? Military? Education? It's tough. Where?
Well, I've been there. So the first thing I want to do is look at the budget and see where there are positions that are funded but not filled. Let's start there. I want to get all the low-hanging fruit. And once we've done that, then there are going to be some tough decisions. I have been looking at agencies. One agency that I think is time to do away with is the Department of Education. Please don't think I don't value education. I do. But I can tell you that our states will spend that money as well or better than the federal government.
Let the states do it closer to home and know what's needed. We just have a few minutes left. I told you I was going to
go so fast.
What else would you like to share? We talked about many, many issues. Education now is one that we just touched upon. Getting it right with the Department of Education doesn't mean that you don't value it. What about education? What we're seeing Asians, we're seeing the Japanese, the Chinese overtaking us. We're seeing the Indians coming into our nation, having these high-profile engineering, mathematic jobs. Where are the Americans in these positions?
Well, yeah, the reason I ran for the legislature was exactly this issue. And, of course, I got to work on taxes and election law. It doesn't change the fact that making sure that my children got an education was the most important thing to me. And so I look at the systems that we've put in place, and I believe that we are off track. I believe we look at our educational systems as if they are jobs programs rather than focusing on the transference of knowledge, making sure our children have access to knowledge at whatever level they need it. And I watch our system, and we're holding back very smart children, and they are being hurt because they need to go forward. And then we have other children who are not taught to read, and then they are just stuck. I know we can do better.
Some of the social issues, Janice, would you like to touch upon them in the last 2 minutes that we have regarding marriage, same-sex marriage, marriage between a man and a wife, a woman's right to choose? What would you like to touch upon?
I would love to tell you. Christ is my Savior. I believe in the Word. I believe that abortion is wrong. I cannot advocate it for it. I believe that marriage is a sacrament. It is between a man and a woman. Now, I am running for Congress. I want you to know that this is what I feel. This is what I believe. But my job in Congress is to listen to everybody. Even when I disagree, I must listen, and I must ask God for the wisdom that He granted Solomon. That's my job. I intend to do that.
Very good. Thank you so much, Janice, for sharing all this with you. And again, it's the jobs also that we need. Absolutely. In terms of, it's heartbreaking to see folks out there who, well-meaning New Mexicans who have started their small businesses, but because of the economy have lost them. It's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, but we can change that. But we have to choose to. And waiting for our government to make the changes, that is not it.
And again, to do it that is not it.
No.
But it's the regulations, it's the tax. What
the government?
What can you do? What could you do as a congresswoman?
I can help make sure that the regulations do not make you sit on the sidelines. I can make sure that the taxes and the regulation and the taxes together free up your revenue. And just a little tidbit, did you know the cost of compliance, that's regulation and taxes together, cost about 20% of revenue for every business? If we pulled that back to 10% just by simplifying, that 10% would open up more jobs, more activity. We can do this. That is the role of government. Some regulation is absolutely terrific, but we are mired in a mess. It's time to clean it up, and that's why you need to send a woman to Washington.
November 6th is the election. This isn't your first. I mean, you had a statewide as governor. Again, you're anxious. It looks like enthusiastic.
I am not only anxious. I am ready. I'm ready to go to work because there is so much work to do. And I think about all of the issues. You know, we haven't talked about the veterans issues. We haven't talked about special populations like individuals on DD waivers. And I would put that in the same group as young people who are coming back from the wars with traumatic brain injury. Have we prepared for that? There are huge issues. And then there is moving our nation forward, not only on its electric grid, but also using our resources appropriately and conserving. This is a whole other discussion, and we're not even there yet.
But we gave you a half hour here. No. Thank you. Again, Janice Arnold-Jones, good luck to you in the election. And again, all of you viewers out there, the election day is Tuesday, November 6th. Go out and make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.